Hello and thank you for joining us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che for Arirang News. Another natural disaster takes lives just 2 days after Japan was rattled by back-to-back earthquakes. At least 77 people have been killed in Ecuador as a 7.8 quake hit the country located in the notorious Ring of Fire. However, officials caution the number is preliminary and they expect changes on the death toll and the damages caused. Iji has the latest.
The strongest earthquake to hit Ecuador in decades has left at least 77 dead and scores injured, destroying tall buildings and trapping people in the rubble. The magnitude 7.8 quake struck at close to 7 p.m. on Saturday local time, just 27 kilometers west of the northern coastal town of Muisne. The seismic event was recorded at a relatively shallow depth of 19.2 kilometers, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. However, the tremor was still strong enough to be felt in the capital of Quito, 170 kilometers away from the epicenter, where it reportedly shook a building for about 40 seconds. The full extent of the damage is not yet known, as the quake struck as evening was falling, but coastal towns and cities near the epicenter like Muisne, Rosa Zarate, and Manta have been seriously affected, with buildings, bridges, and an airport control tower collapsing. Vice President Jorge Glass said at a press conference on Saturday at least 77 people had been killed, but called it a preliminary figure that could rise as daylight broke. He also declared a national emergency and said 10,000 soldiers and 3,500 police have been dispatched to the affected areas. In Korea, the foreign ministry said Sunday there had been no Korean casualties reported as of noon, and that it had sent a text message with a list of safety precautions to the 1,200 Koreans living in Ecuador. Iji, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea has dispatched an emergency response team to southern Japan to help with the ongoing search and rescue effort following 2 deadly earthquakes over the weekend. The Foreign Ministry said Sunday the 4-member team consists of 2 ministry staffers from Korea and 2 from Japan. The team will be tasked with reporting on the damage to Korean residents in the affected areas. There are about 20,000 Koreans living on Kyushu Island, but there have been no Korean casualties reported so far. Meanwhile, Korean airlines have added extra flights to help bring travelers back home. And Korean travel agencies have waived penalties for travelers canceling bookings to Kyushu Island. At least 41 people were killed in the 2 earthquakes that struck Japan's Kumamoto prefecture last week, and nearly 80 people are believed to be still trapped under the rubble. Lawmakers from Korea's 3 major political parties will meet for the first time since last week's transformative election that saw the ruling party lose its majority and a newly minted opposition bloc solidify its negotiating power. The floor leaders of Saenuri Party, Minju Party of Korea, and the minor opposition People's Party will meet Monday to continue their negotiations on a number of bills, including one on labor reform and another on the service sector. However, pundits are doubtful about the prospects for any new developments, as the bills have been held up by disagreements between the 2 main parties, neither of which has changed its position. Instead, the attention is now on whether the People's Party, which currently has 21 parliamentary seats and won 38 in the election, can play the role of mediator. The incoming lawmakers will take office next month. A 5th nuclear test by North Korea may be imminent. That's according to officials from the South Korea, who point out recent movements at the regime's nuclear test site seem to indicate the preparations are in the final stages. For details, let's turn to our Kwon So-hwa.
There is a strong chance that North Korea will conduct another nuclear test soon, just 3 months after its 4th test, despite the UN Security Council sanctions imposed on the North last month for that test. Government officials said Sunday that movements at North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site indicate the regime is preparing for a 5th test. According to the officials, the activity involving vehicles, equipment, and humans has increased 2 to 3 times compared to last month at the test site in the northeastern part of the country. Pyongyang recently claimed it is ready to launch nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles. While that capability is still in question, South Korea is closely monitoring North Korea's movements. Some experts say a fifth nuclear test may be even more imminent now, as the regime's reputation has been dented by its failed launch of an intermediate-range ballistic missile on Friday, and the regime may be in a hurry to show off its missile and/or nuclear capabilities ahead of its ruling Workers' Party Congress in early May, the first one in 36 years. Others say, however, the chances of a nuclear test before the event are slim.
I doubt that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would go as far as to conduct another nuclear test at this time. The consequences would be very strong, as international sanctions would be intensified and China would be considerably burdened.
Experts say that if the North were to launch another missile or conduct another nuclear test, the UN Security Council could be expected to immediately impose even stronger sanctions on the regime, as it indicated in its most recent condemnation of the North's latest missile test. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea's economic forecast isn't looking very rosy. Numerous domestic think tanks are slashing their growth projections for this year. Hyundai Research Institute became the latest to do so, cutting growth projection to 2.5% in a report released Sunday, pulling it down from 2.8% back in October. The think tank cited a longer-than-expected slump in exports along with difficulties in the domestic market as the key contributing factors. The cut comes after the IMF recently downgraded its forecast for Korea by 0.2 percentage points to 2.7%, citing a decline in imports from China. Experts say the Bank of Korea may soon follow suit, as it's expected to announce its revised growth outlook this week. Korea's dependence on trade has dropped to an 8-year low, mainly due to the significant fall in exports last year. According to Korea's central bank on Sunday, the nation's trade dependence ratio plummeted by 10.5 percentage points in 2015 from the previous year, the lowest since the year 2007. Due to the country's export-oriented economy, the dependence has at times even peaked to over 110%. Much of the decline is attributed to decreased demand from China, South Korea's biggest trading partner. In fact, separate data released Sunday shows outbound shipments plunged almost 16% in the first quarter, a record 7-year low. Experts say a different strategy is needed for Korea's trade market to turn things around. It hasn't been long since spring arrived here in Korea, but with daytime temperatures reaching over 20 degrees Celsius, summer items are already hitting the shelves. Our Oh Jung-hee has some valuable tips on which products to look out for.
It's just 2 weeks into April and watermelons are already on sale at a big supermarket chain in Korea. That's about 2 weeks earlier than in previous years. The chain E-Mart says that the warming weather is the main reason why they just had to put them on the shelves.
The weather is getting warmer and warmer. With summer on the way, we're offering the iconic summer fruit, watermelons, right now.
The customers seem satisfied as they can buy the sweet summer fruit for a price that's 20% lower than usual.
I've tasted the watermelons here and they're quite flavorful. They're pretty cheap too.
Other outlets are also getting a jump on their pre-summer sales events. Lotte Department Store launched its annual sundress sale on Wednesday. The retailer moved the event start date up by a month, again because of the warm weather. About 120 fashion brands will participate in the sales event that is to last until next weekend, and dresses will be sold at a maximum 70% discount. The rising mercury has also brought a surge in sales of summer products online. One online shopping mall saw sales of shaving creams and hair removal wax go up by 30% and 50%. There was also a noticeable increase in sales for beauty products and food items like weight loss drinks. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange market may soon be open for an extra half hour. Korea's Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho, who is in Washington for the G20 meeting of finance ministers and central bankers, told reporters that extending the operating hours would help revitalize and globalize the Korean stock market. The current hours would be extended from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. to 3:30. There are also ongoing efforts to extend the Korea Exchange's stock trading hours by the same amount to boost its volume. Yu said foreign investors will suffer inconvenience in foreign currency exchanges unless FX market operations coincide with stock trading hours. The local stock market's current trading hours are at least 2 hours shorter than those in Singapore and Europe. The government will seek to implement the plan later this year. Strong winds that blew across South Korea on Saturday night left their mark in various corners of the nation. On the southern resort island of Jeju, more than 280 flights were grounded before things got back to normal on Sunday morning. In the southern port city of Busan, powerful winds accompanied by 77 millimeters of rain capsized the boat and swept it 700 meters off course. Makeshift covers at numerous construction sites in Ulsan were flung off, damaging parked vehicles. In the southwest, road signs, signboards, and poles were flung out of place in Jeonju, while airborne garbage cans sprayed trash all over. Out east in Goryeo, 10 greenhouses had their roofs ripped off, while in Pohang, golf practice facilities were torn apart. And in Incheon, west of Seoul, 13 boats were unable to cast off. The winds reached speeds of up to 20 meters per second in some places and are still blowing off the eastern coast. Strong wind advisories are still in effect for the eastern coastal islands of Ulleung-do, Dokdo, and the western islands of Huksan-do and Hongdo. On Monday, there may be some fine dust sweeping across the country, so you may want to carry a mask with you and also think about carrying an umbrella as well, as there is rain in the forecast for many parts of the country, including the capital. Seoul and Daejeon will start the day at 7 degrees Celsius, Daegu at 9. Later, the mercury will climb all the way up to 17 in Seoul, 19 in Daejeon, and 20 in Daegu. And now let's check out the weather conditions in other parts of our world. We've come to the end of our newscast, and as always, thank you for watching.